Hi, everyone, and welcome to Live with Dr. Stacy Sims, Train Like a Woman. I am Tiffany Nieslanik. I am the head of community here at Livelong, and I'm so glad to have you joining us for today's live event. Stacy Sims is an exercise physiologist, a Stanford researcher, author of Roar and Next Level. She spent over 25 years studying what women's bodies actually need. She's known for her pioneering work on female performance and health. If you haven't seen her TEDx talk yet, where she encourages the entire audience to say women have periods out loud, I highly recommend it. It's a personal favorite because monthly hormonal fluctuations really do matter for us as women. And I think that's a really important point to make. So before we hop into our Q&A, I want to say first, thank you so much for your patience. Stacy and I were blaming the year of the fire horse just before we were getting on because we were having some technical difficulties. But we also have some housekeeping items. First, if you have any questions you want to ask Stacy, you can submit it. We have a small box at the bottom. It has a little question mark in it. Just go in there, type in your questions. You can see other people's questions. You can upvote questions if you want. We're going to take them throughout this live time, and we'll get to as many as we can. Secondly, there's a chat feature right next to that question mark box. So if you have something that you want to say to other members, if something's just really resonating with you, if you have questions about Circle or how to use something, you can put it in there. I'll do my best to try to help answer those questions in real time. And to kick things off, I just really like it if anyone who's on the call can share your name and maybe your favorite way to exercise. I think that could be a good way to start this little chat. So, Stacy, I think we'll get into it now. And honestly, you have this, I feel like I have to start with your famous line, women are not small men. We all have heard that, hopefully. But just in case there are women in our community who haven't heard it before, can you tell us a little bit of the quick version of why that matters for what we eat and how we exercise?
Yeah, I still think it's interesting that people walk around and think that the physiology of women and men are the same because we look from every cellular aspect of our bodies are different. That's why when you're looking from at birth, you have XX versus XY. It's not only a genetic code that creates a whole bunch of change, but it's also as we are experiencing life and we have hormone exposures, we have fluctuations of hormones, we have things like pregnancy, just all across all of our experiences really create a different environment for the female body versus the male body. So when I'm going and I'm a researcher and an athlete and an advocate for women, I'm like, why are we still putting women in this small box and just shrink and pink male protocols? Because we know that it's not appropriate for the female body. We know inherently that exercise responses, although similar, still are different, meaning that our adaptations at the end could be the same, but we have to look at how we're doing the protocols along the way. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of women because put in so much work and yet we don't get the same adaptation responses as fast as our male counterparts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have personal experience with that, and it made me very upset, as I'm sure many other callers do. One of the things that I was noticing is you have over 100 peer-reviewed papers that have been published that focus on female athlete health. And I just am curious, is there anything that really stands out to you in all of that data as one of the more surprising things that you've learned during this time?
I think it's accumulation of everything. It's like you're learning it as you're publishing, and you're also looking at the literature and how it's expanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the big poignant parts that came when I started working with Professor Holly Thorpe, who's a sociologist, is that most of the research that we're putting out there is done on a very singular population, which is pretty much the upper middle class white population. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at that research population, especially in the sport context. It's a very, very, very small point. So now we're looking at how are we expanding this? How are we including the nuances of someone from a different culture? And I am starting to really reach into that in my later years of publication. But early years, you're all like, okay, this is great. This is a sound. We're gonna get all the results from this really cool research design, and we can apply it to everyone. And then as you go through it all, and you're starting to see, hey, wait, I am one person, but my neighbor across the street, she comes from South Africa and she's completely different from me, and she experiences life differently, and her body might respond the same, maybe not, but let's include that into the nuances of research.
I think the nuance is obviously very, very impactful across research. I'm going to actually spotlight one of the questions we have from our community right now. I think it's an interesting question that we deal with a lot, which is, does each pregnancy that we go through increase our risk? This question is for insulin resistance later in life. What happens if we're adding in pregnancy after 40? I'm sure you're aware that there's a huge uptick in women who are having children after the age of 40. What does that change for us?
So pregnancy is in its own unique state, right? So our body is changing so much during the pregnancy to accommodate for a growing human. Afterwards, so if you get like pre-gestational diabetes, then that will dissipate. It doesn't make you more sensitive. It's what are we doing afterwards that is going to change that environment back to a very healthy environment, meaning our body composition and how we are responding to exercise. So it's not a given. We do know that as you get older as a woman, you do increase insulin resistance as a change of hormone fluctuations. But what happens during pregnancy does not dictate what's going to happen later in life.
Great. I think that actually kind of ties in with another hormonal change that happens a lot of times in our 40s and our 50s, of course. I feel like I read a lot, I hear a lot about women at this time period where we talk about this idea that our bodies feel like they stop responding the way that they used to. We can maybe try the same workouts, we can eat the same diet, but our results are not the same any longer. Could you walk us through what's happening physiologically to our bodies at that time?
Yeah. So when we're looking at age 35 to maybe 51, so we call that the perimenopausal years, and people are really kind of surprised that it could start as early as 35. You don't really necessarily start getting symptoms for another 7 or 8 years. So we don't really know like where it starts. But what is definitively happening is we're having more and more anovulatory cycles. So that means we're not producing as much progesterone. We're having estrogen fluctuations that are then now unopposed with progesterone. And remember, every cell in the body has estrogen and progesterone receptors. So as we start looking what's happening, every cell is having a metabolic change, and it's having a change in its ability to be stress resilient. So if we look at what's happening and we're eating the same and we're exercising the same, putting in the work, it's not the right kind of stress to create an adaptive response. We have to look at how estrogen is anti-inflammatory, how it helps the cells bring fuel in. And if we're losing estrogen or we're having variations in fluctuation, then we have to look at how are we going to change up what we're doing from a exercise point of view to enhance cell responses. So we look at strength training. What does that mean? We have to look at muscle physiology that's happening with perimenopause and age. It's really hard to tease them out, but we see that with age from 40 to 60, there's a definitive change in our muscles' ability to produce power and strength, whereas men just lose mass. We also see that when we start getting the hormone fluctuations involved in that muscle physiology, it enhances the decrease in strength and power because estrogen is tightly tied to that. So we have to understand all the things that are happening with aging and the fluctuation in hormones to say, yeah, you know what? If we are lifting and doing resistance training with body weight or light weights, we're not really benefiting this change in muscle physiology. If we're doing long, slow distance all the time, we're not actually taxing the cells in a way that's going to increase glucose uptake and reduce body fat. So this is why, you hear so many women like, I don't know what happened. I'm eating the same. I'm trying to concentrate on my sleep. I'm exercising diligently, but yet I feel like I woke up squishy overnight.
Yeah. 7 to 8 years before symptoms is wild.
I know. Most people are like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, I'm starting to see what's happening here in my 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, that is wild. Maybe this is kind of already answered, but I'm curious. I'm going to spotlight this question from someone in our audience who asked, is there a way that they can incorporate more strength training I think when they struggle to see it as a chore is maybe what was meant to be typed there. Are there any alternative options besides weightlifting that would still help with bone density or the other things you were talking about?
Yeah. So I always look at this and I want to know why it is viewed as a chore. Like if we are doing something that's really boring for us and it's tedious, then it's not what we should be doing, right? But strength training is really important. So we can look at, like I saw this woman around the corner today. She looked to be in her 80s and she was mowing her lawn with a push mower. And so she's pushing up a hill. I'm like, that's strength training. That's functional work. So we have to look at like, what does it mean to be strength training? If we don't like going to the gym, there are other alternatives that we can do. We can use a weighted backpack and walk upstairs or do lunges upstairs. If we're looking at bone density specifically, then we look at jump training, because we know that jump training, not plyometrics, but low landing, hard landing jump training is really effective at increasing bone density. So it's not necessarily changing what we're doing for strength modality. It's like trying to find something that incorporates what you're already doing and putting some push-pull action into that.
Do you have a place where you feel like time under tension programs maybe also fit into that area somehow? How do you feel about time under tension programs, I guess, in a
Yeah.
of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that can work into, I think one of the biggest things that's missed in the conversation is periodization, right? How are we looking over the course of the year? Where are we putting in blocks of what we would normally call base training, where we're getting the body really resilient and we're finding things that we love? Then we have some power-based training, and we can put time into tension and tempo work into there. So when we talk about it, I feel like everyone is just looking at that one point in time, that one workout, or what I do 3 times a week. And it's much bigger when we're talking about the whole picture of things, because some people love doing more muscle endurance stuff. Yeah, that's okay. But let's put in some heavy stuff with the stuff that you love, so that it becomes not a chore and it becomes very manageable, and it's not a long time in the gym. It's 20 minutes. It's super effective, but it has to come in that periodized plan.
Got it. I think right now we're having a lot of questions coming in. I'm just looking at them all, and it's, there's quite a few that are talking about HRT and the impact of training with those, and hormones impacting your different training. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about that. I mean, that's a big world. We could talk for hours about it, but just in general, people are having different kinds of challenges with their hormone shifting and strength training. I think there's a question about if it affects mTOR. So just, I don't know if you have any thoughts about those 2 points in particular.
Yeah. So let me explain the muscle physiology parts that are directly affected by estrogen. So if we're looking at what estrogen does, besides its anti-inflammatory properties, there are 3 critical factors. One, it stimulates satellite cells, so your basal cell of muscle fiber, or muscle cell itself. The other is, when we think about contractile proteins, we have actin and myosin. And the way that I like to demonstrate is, like, we have actin and myosin, and they bond together, and it pulls it together for a strong contraction. And myosin is directly affected by estrogen. So when we start to lose estrogen, we start to lose what we call the isoform, the really strong isotope or isoform of myosin. And this is why it doesn't bond and we start to feel weak, even if we are strength training. The other thing is how fast that conduction to stimulate that nerve goes. And that's also related to estrogen. So when we start losing that, then we aren't getting as fast of a conduction to create power. So when we start looking at strength training, it's not about mTOR. It's about how are we affecting the whole muscle fiber innervation aspect. And so we have to look at the bottom end, or the low rep, higher load end of things, because that is such a strong stimulus. It will create neuromuscular changes. And that is what we're after, to optimize that strength and power. But for more importantly, brain health. So when we're looking at the long term, yes, we want to have lean mass, which you will get when you are lifting on the heavier end. We want to have that neuromuscular control for a strong contraction and a powerful contraction. So when we're 80 and we're walking down the street, if we happen to slip on a curb, we don't fall over and break our hip. We also see that neuromuscular aspect really affects prefrontal cortex. The heavy loads affect prefrontal cortex and other areas in the brain. Lighter loads don't affect prefrontal cortex. So when we're looking at optimization and looking for health span, we want to look at all the changes that are happening and how do we optimize for now for what's happening later. So when we start bringing in MHT, and I call it MHT as menopause hormone therapy, it is a tool in the toolbox. But unfortunately, when we had the pendulum swing the other way, and now we're seeing all these people are saying everyone needs to be on it. To me, that's like telling every woman you need to be on an oral contraceptive pill, because we don't know the long-term ramifications. We see that, yes, it's really, really good at osteoporosis prevention. So if you have a risk factor for it, or you have low bone density, then definitely have that conversation with your doctor. we see if you have the APOE4 gene, which is a risk factor for Alzheimer's, earlier you get on menopause hormone therapy, the less chance you have of developing it. But the factor of both of those is you still have to put the lifestyle changes into effect to maximize and to actually get the effects of menopause hormone therapy. It's not one or the other. They work together. So if you are doing all the lifestyle things and you're like, yeah, I'm sweet. Great for you. That's fantastic. If you're doing all the lifestyle things and you're still struggling, have that conversation with your doctor. But just know that's pharmaceutical and we still don't have all the long-term studies. Right now, what we have is safety data, and that's great. It's very safe. So don't be afraid, but also don't expect it to be the magic bullet to change everything.
I love that point. And I think the longer I look into things, it's always like build your foundation, build a strong foundation. You can't just assume that one thing's going to help you when you don't have all the other ducks in a row.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's boring.
It is. It is boring. But it works. Let's switch over maybe a little bit to nutrition stuff. I think you talk a lot about fueling around training. And I'm curious, is there a common mistake you see women make when it comes to nutrition and exercise, especially women who maybe think they are doing everything right and aren't quite?
Yeah, I feel that there are two really big missteps. One is thinking calories in, calories out. Mm-hmm. And the other is underestimating how much fuel you actually need for all the changes that are happening to your body, trying to adapt, as well as life stress. Mm-hmm. Because most women who are in their 40s onward, all exposed to like the 1990s era of fat burning and low fat and calories in, calories out, and you need to be thin. And now when we're seeing more of the GLP-1 effect on the Hollywood stars, and now thin is coming back in, there's all these misconstrued messages about nutrition. So I want people to take it as an individual journey and understand you need to fuel for what you are doing in the day. So if you're waking up and you're going to go training, you need to fuel for that. It's not about food and calories. It's about fuel. We need to fuel the body for all the energetic processes, from brain to heart to muscle to reparation to endocrine health to being able to be cognate and have energy throughout the day. So you're fueling throughout the day, and then you stop at dinner, and then you have your overnight rest, or as a modern trendy word is fasting, right? So you have that time where your body can do all the reparation and it has the fuel to do the reparation overnight.
I think maybe just brought up GLP-1s. I'm going to bring up this question that we have from our community, and it's, do you have any concerns about using GLP-1 meds to help with metabolic dysfunction, particularly in postmenopausal women? This is a very specific group, but we can make it a little bit broad too if you have concerns about using GLP-1 meds in general across different populations who maybe have a normal BMI but need to lose some weight and already are lifting and exercising regularly.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely a time and a place for them. And they're a very powerful drug for metabolic control. So that's their original use. What's happening is when we're looking at the doses for weight loss, they're more extreme than what you would use for diabetes. And this is what we're seeing with the extremities of lean mass loss, tendinopathies, poor ligament health. All of the negative connotations we're having with it, especially when we're talking about microdosing or using it off label. Mm-hmm. Again, there's not a lot of long-term data on there for all these other things that people are talking about with brain health and bone health and osteoarthritis, because they're just short snippets in time. So my general recommendation is if you need it, great, under controlled supervision. But again, you have to put in lifestyle factor changes in there to preserve your lean mass in your bone, in your tendon health and everything. If you're looking at it for 10 vanity pounds, then just know that your body has changed. And maybe those extra 10 pounds are there for a reason. And we see that in the older population, a little bit more weight is actually good, because then if you get sick, you're more resilient to that. Mm-hmm. So I think the constructs of what I need to weigh, people are still falling back on the aesthetics, which is, it's fine. I mean, we all want to look good. But the other thing is longer term health. So if you need to lose an extra 10 pounds, is that for health factors to bring BMI down? Well, then, yeah, maybe you are going to try the GLP-1 because nutrition and exercise and lifestyle isn't. But have we looked at sleep factors? Have we looked at stress factors? Have we looked at all the other things that affect body composition? Because we know that if you have poor sleep or you're not sleeping adequately, then you cannot invoke any kind of change. And if you're not eating enough, you cannot invoke any kind of change because your body gets into a conservation mode.
Yeah. I love the perspective of thinking about it as a protective measure to have those extra pounds when you get a little bit older. I'm going to bring up maybe this last question from our community. I know we're getting close to time, but this is a person who said they've been taking creatine for over a year and they keep hearing about urolithin A and is hearing about the research. Do you think should it be both? Is one better? What are your thoughts?
Creatine, definitely. We see that one, it's the most studied supplement out there, and it's moved away from just health and fitness into pure health. And we see the benefits across the board from adolescent athletes, pregnant women, all the way up to old age men and women. So creatine, definitely. Urolithin A is a different story because it is very population specific and it's primarily been done on male athletes. So when we have to look at what does that mean for someone who's not that male athletic population, we need to have more research, because from what I'm reading and understanding, it's a waste of time unless you are specifically in that elite upper fitness level male population.
Yeah. You just mentioned younger people, and I was curious, you have a teenage daughter, I know, and I'm curious, what do you hope, the health world specifically around exercise and nutrition, what do you hope those recommendations look like for women when your daughter is, our age and, and getting older?
Yeah. I think, well, my hope is that it's just normalized, that what we say, this is great for women, perfect. That's what we do. It's great for men, perfect. Maybe there's some overlap, sweet. But right now we see that it's very polarized and people are like, oh no, we don't need to worry about that. Just the same as puberty is all default to the little boy and what they're doing. So my hope is when she gets to be in her 20s, 30s, 40s, that everything is normalized and she doesn't have to advocate for herself being a woman. My dream is that she wakes up to a system that's designed for her instead of all of us right now waking up to a system that is designed for men.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible. Well, I know we're so excited to have you at the Livelong Women's Health Summit, which is happening in San Francisco on April 17th and 18th. Yay. I think maybe we have, a couple of minutes left. Do you mind telling me maybe who you're excited also to see there? I know there's a lot of people that are looking forward to seeing you there. Is there anybody that you're particularly interested to hear from? And then also, I know you have ties to Stanford, so I'm curious, do you have any favorite activities or restaurants in the area that you would like to mention that people might want to check out while they're there for the summit?
Yeah, so the first one who I'm excited to see everyone because we all talk in different circles and we never really get together. So I'm excited to see Vonda and Mary Claire and Natalie. And I'm really excited to talk to Jane Fonda because I've seen her advocacy all the way through, and it's just going to be incredible. With San Francisco, I actually grew up there. My dad was the commander of Oakland Army Base, and I ended up growing up in Fort Mason, went to high school in San Francisco, and then gravitated back and forth. So when I talk about what are some really cool things to do in the city versus the Stanford area, it's the city's gone through a very demised time, and now it's coming back. So I look at it and I'm like, everyone should just enjoy the little neighborhoods. Because if we start going back to the little neighborhoods like the Fillmore area and going to actually the Fillmore for some live jazz or going down and seeing the Painted Ladies and having a picnic there, all that brings vibrancy back to the city. And then if we go down to the Marina Green and we go down to the boathouses there where Green's Restaurant's still there and all the art that's down on the wharf area there. So yeah, it's great. And if you can walk from Fort Mason down along the waterfront, around Aquatic Park, down all the way down to South Beach or South Bay area, like all that waterfront and going to the farmers market, all of those things, just you'll see all the pockets of the city, and it'll give you lots of information about the vibrancy of the city. And I'm really excited to see how the new mayor has like really tried to clean up the city and bring it back to how it used to be.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. And like I said, we're so excited to see you in person in less than a month. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, thanks. This has been fun.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.